clean, efficient transit. That transit must be accessible, convenient, speedy. It doesn't need to be light rail or subways or heavy rail. It can be buses, but to be optimized, it really needs to be very accessible and low times between bus stops and very high quality bus stations. The second principle is safe and attractive streets and sidewalks, the public realm, and I think Tom did a very good job of describing the benefits of the public realm. The third being tame the automobile, and that was kind of the gist of Wade's talk, very important, and I'll talk briefly about that. And then lastly, but not least, are the desirable destinations, the private realm, behind the sidewalk. Again, we need to have compact, livable places. So the BRT in Cleveland is known as the Health Line, and it was opened in 2008. It connects downtown Cleveland, right at Public Square, with University Circle, which is about 7 miles on the outskirts. And it travels through a section of the city that's fairly low density currently, but becoming much more dense. I thought I'd get through these stats first to get your attention. 7-mile corridor, 64 stations, 21 articulated buses, opened in 2008, total cost of $200 million, that's capital cost and land acquisition. Annual operating costs of $6 million. Bus speeds have increased 34% over the former traditional conventional bus line. 12-minute average savings in transit ridership per transit rider. Ridership has increased by 60% since it opened in 2008, which is an incredible increase of ridership, particularly considering the current economic climate. And most impressive is the $5 billion, that's B, $5 billion in new investment that has taken place within a quarter mile of Euclid Corridor since the construction started on the BRT in 2006. So how did this miracle of change happen to Euclid Corridor? I'd like to talk a bit, and not long, about background, because I think it's interesting and important. Euclid Corridor was once a complete street. It was once the Fifth Avenue of Cleveland. In fact, it had more wealth per mile than Fifth Avenue in Cleveland. And as you can see, it had a host of different modes of travel. So from that standpoint, it was very much a complete street, very active, very alive, very much filled with pedestrians. Times were different, people behaved differently, people drove differently, people really kind of respected each mode of travel. So you ask, why do we think that we can go back to these times? And we think that we can. We think that people do value these spaces where the car needs to be considered equally, maybe even subordinate to pedestrians and to cyclists. And then the next step in the Euclid Corridor evolution is not a good step. The 60s were not kind at all to Euclid Corridor. The streetcars were ripped up in the 50s, and that was precipitated by basically the automobile and the dominance of the automobile and the resulting accommodations for the automobile. But also in the 60s, 1966 had race riots in Cleveland, as in many large cities in America. There were storefronts that were basically destroyed. There were buildings that were torched. Euclid Corridor was decimated. And then in 1969, insult to injury, who knows what happens in Cleveland in 1969? Yes, the Cuyahoga River, which parallels the Cleveland Euclid Corridor, caught fire. The river was so polluted that it actually burned. And then in 1978, again, the city faced financial default, one of the few cities in America to go bankrupt. This all happened kind of parallel with suburbanization, with the construction of highways. We don't think that there's a coincidence in urban flight and disinvestment and the accommodation and the degree to which we basically designed cities around the automobile. And not coincidentally, the city's population dropped from a high of 900,000 in the 30s and 40s to its current level of 400,000. So the city since then has done a lot. They've attempted many different makeovers. They did a lot of redevelopment. A lot of that fell flat. Back in the 80s and 90s, they were trying to used transit to spur economic revitalization of downtown and Euclid corridor. They were considering building a light rail system, but eventually found that the costs were too high. Around 1995, city officials visited Curitiba, Brazil, which is now known internationally as one of the best examples of bus rapid transit. BRT transformed this impoverished city in Brazil into a world-class city. Single-handedly, the increase of value of that city can be attributed to the transit system. So, armed with that information and impressed with the findings, the city went ahead and changed the design of the light rail to BRT. And that BRT system, as I mentioned, is very, very high quality. It basically functions, looks, even sounds like light rail, that the buses look like trains, that the boarding is very efficient and smooth and clean and quick. Multiple doors, there's 5 doors on each bus, 3 on the right side, 2 on the left side. There's high-level boarding, so basically level from the platform. And this is a mistake. It's not off-board fare. There's actually, I'm sorry, we did correct this. Thank you, Christine. It is off-board fare, and there are internet kiosks as well as real-time information about the bus arrivals and departures. So from a aspect of convenience, from the aspect of, again, making transit the preferred mode of choice, the mode of choice for people that need to get back and forth from their home to their destinations at workplace, it is very successful. It actually operates in a dedicated lane. So Euclid corridor was formerly 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction. It is now 1 lane in each direction for general traffic and 1 lane in each direction for bus dedicated. So Road Diet was very much a part of this project, and I'll talk a bit later about the consequences of that. The traffic lights were all reconstructed and made optimal for bus travel. So buses have the right of way, and the buses themselves are diesel-electric hybrids. So the second principle, this whole idea of the public realm and making streets attractive and providing an address, providing a stage, and even you can consider it a living room for the private realm behind it, was very much a part of this project. Sasaki Associates was a consultant with CDM Smith on the design, and they did a wonderful job of providing for this new streetscape that was very attractive and actually attracted investors and made people excited about moving back to the city, and actually caused, between the bus system and the convenience of travel and the remake of the streets and the addition of bicycle lanes on the street, the institutions along the boulevard, which are pretty extensive, decided that they needed to face the street. Prior to this, they were inward, they were very much oriented away from the street. That change of attitude, that change of physical presence, had a great degree of changing the character of the street and fostering even more investment. So that whole public realm was augmented by accommodations for pedestrians to make pedestrian travel safer, to make pedestrian crossing safer. The center medians, which provided the accommodation for the stations, for many of the stations along the route, also acted as pedestrian refuge islands. So there was very much a change of the degree of safety for pedestrians along this section of the city. The third principle, taming the automobile, it is interesting because people equate road diet and the reduction of the number of lanes of travel in an urban condition with a threat to the ability to get to their destination. In other words, if you take away that capacity, there'll be congestion. Well, Carmageddon didn't happen in Cleveland. There was no, traffic gridlock that the monster from the depths of Hades ascending to the street to cause chaos did not transpire. In fact, the anecdotal evidence of automobile travel on Euclid corridor today, with just 1 lane in each direction, is that it's actually faster. So not only has the degree of bus travel, the time that transit riders take to go from home to destination, been reduced, but automobile travel has actually been reduced. And we attribute that to a number of things. It's kind of like the reverse triple convergence, and I won't get all wonky about what that means. But basically, it means that when you change the character of a street to reduce its capacity, people change their route, they change their mode of travel, or they change the time of day that they travel, they change their schedule. So this triple benefit, if you will, is quite effective and results in this added value of not having congestion after the makeover. It also results in a better quality of life because people who live along the corridor, people who are transit dependent, can get better access to jobs. People who are living along the corridor or close by don't need to have as many cars in the family. So there are a number of studies that are coming out now that show that these kinds of benefits result in thousands of dollars per capita of benefit to individuals, tens of thousands for families. The fourth principle, the desirable diverse destinations, the private realm behind the sidewalk. The Greater Cleveland RTA, Regional Transit Authority, was very good. As Tom mentioned, collaboration is key with a lot of these innovative, I guess, public-private ventures. Worked very closely with the community of Cleveland, worked very closely with the institutions along the corridor, ensured that the transit-dependent populations would be involved in the discussion and their views were being considered, and provided for developers to come to the table and understand what their issues and needs were. All this worked to great benefit because, as I mentioned previously, there was $5 billion in investment, which is phenomenal. And that $5 billion is a consequence of institutions building new facilities along the corridor that they arguably would have built elsewhere. The corridor was in demise. It's a result of new investments along the corridor in terms of housing. 4,000 new housing units have either been built or on the boards for construction. It has been an amazing success from purely the economic side. Part of that advantage was that the BRT itself was named the Healthline, which was naming rights that was sold to the hospitals, namely the Cleveland Clinic and the University Hospitals. That naming rights provides for a flow of money that helps to offset operating expenses. So the results, and then the other aspect, and I think an important aspect of this collaboration with the community and provision for the private realm is that the city knew that it needed to not only provide for quality transit, it needed to provide for quality development. So it realized that to optimize the investment of transit and to maximize the real estate, it needed to change zoning. So they worked very closely with the property owners, with the city, to change the zoning. They moved towards more of a new urbanism format for form-based code, which is a very distinctive and unique way to look at opportunity for real estate investment. So the Euclid Corridor, the development along the Euclid Corridor is truly transit-oriented development. So all this has resulted in the comeback of the city. There's this discussion, even as we speak, of new investment, and there's even a lot of opportunity yet because, as I mentioned, of the demise during the 60s and 70s and continued into the 21st century. The turnaround of the city didn't happen until 2005. There were hundreds of acres of land that were brownfields, that were vacant, that were demolished as a consequence of redevelopment and the flight of investment from the city. So that creates this opportunity, and we think that transit had a big role in that opportunity. So I'm going to summarize, and then we can open up to questions or comments. That BRT resulted in true mobility for Euclid Corridor. That mobility is not simply a function of getting in your car and driving from your home to downtown. We now know that mobility in almost every condition, but in particular urban conditions, needs to factor bicycle travel. It needs to factor pedestrian travel. We underestimate the value of walking as a mode of travel. That many trips can take place and do take place between the home and the transit stop, between the transit stop and the place of work. Many trips take place between the transit facility and the destination on bicycles. So we need to make bicycle travel accessible not only in providing for bicycle storage and bicycle parking at transit stations, but for bicycles to be on the actual vehicles. We know that we need to design for all users, and those users include people who have limited income and limited abilities to travel and to cross streets. So the end result is that Euclid Corridor is now the focal point of the city of Cleveland. It has added value and investment not only to the corridor, 7 mile long corridor, but to the downtown. Thank you.